From the beginning in 1994, we imagined an organization leveraging the latest technology to make it easier and more cost-effective for America's largest and most creditworthy businesses to get the equipment to expand their business. We imagined a new, more efficient distribution model. We imagined a flat organization, employing the brightest and most talented young professionals, pioneering and innovating a new and better business that could change the entire industry. We identified business segments like healthcare, professional services, insurance, and education, and we reorganized the company to better serve these industries so we could add real value to our clients as a result of our industry expertise. We built an innovative new CRM and operating platform using the latest cloud-based technologies to provide our clients with unmatched service and transparency. We developed and implemented virtual meeting selling technologies, which makes it easier and more cost-effective for clients to obtain the commercial financing services they need. In 2012, we became part of City National Bank, accelerating its North American growth plans with expanded capital and an improved cost structure. In 2013, we expanded our equipment financing business into City National, serving bank clients throughout City National Bank's footprint. In 2014, First American once again met all its commitments, including the contribution of over $26 million of pre-tax earnings to City National. And First American learned it will again be recognized for the fourth consecutive year as one of the top 25 best places to work in New York State. And in 2014, First American announced its expansion into vendor financing to serve large national equipment manufacturers. Much has changed during the past 20 years, yet much remains the same.
You look out across what we have and you think, gosh, this is exactly what I thought it might be.
We were willing to take risks, try new things. Maybe we fail at those things every now and then, but it's one step back, 8 steps forward.
You can't ever be satisfied. You can't ever rest on what you've done because someone's always right behind you doing the same thing.
We have an exceptionally talented team of professionals that do whatever it takes to meet their objectives. We have the kind of team that can change the world. So today we've come together to decide what will we accomplish in 2015.
You just have to keep thinking bigger and bigger, and we keep getting there and getting there.
As someone who's new here, who's just joined the team, I think of opportunity. Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity.
I just don't see the growth stopping.
There's a very good chance we can revolutionize this industry.
Just unlimited potential. It's very inspirational as to what's happening with the organization. Well, we're going to change the world.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kickoff. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation last night as much as I did. I told Neil Hayes after the presentation that I think he's got a winning combination for bringing those ideas from his movie and his screenplay and his book to business. And I don't know what you guys thought, but I found that to be pretty inspirational. All right, great. Well, we've got a good presentation today. I lost my clicker, though. Did I leave that in the back there? Awesome. Thank you very much, Karen. This presentation will go much faster if I have a way to advance the slides. It always works that way. And Mike, am I giving away those plaques? Okay, great. So before we get started this morning, thank you, sorry about that. I wanted to recognize a couple people before I'll take a minute and go over the agenda and tell you a little bit about what we're going to cover this morning, but I wanted to recognize a few people for tenure. Is Mark Stephanie here? Mark, sorry I didn't recognize you, but we haven't met before. I don't actually know how to tell you this, Mark, but I think you might actually have the lowest tenure of anyone in the room. but we give away a lot of awards here, so we recognize everyone. I just wanted to take a minute, and I understand, is this your first day?
Monday will be my first day.
Okay, well, we'll count this one. If you fly to Chicago with us, you should get paid. But we're delighted to have you on board. We sometimes say here among ourselves that, it's our responsibility to create the kind of company that justifies the confidence that people like you who've decided to come and work here put in us. And we do take that seriously, and we appreciate having you here. So I look forward to getting to know you. Thank you. The next person I'm going to recognize has slightly more tenure. Karen Palmazal. It doesn't seem like it's possible, but Karen, who does all the work to put on this great meeting and put our event together last night, runs our marketing department from here in Chicago. And Karen, can you believe it's been 5 years already? On the one hand, I was thinking it seems like just yesterday that we talked and you came on board. But as I was thinking about it last night, there's an amazing amount that we've accomplished in just 5 years. So it's really impressive. But I want to just take a second and tell you a little bit about some of Karen's accomplishments. If you think about it, 5 years ago, we were just going to the vertical team alignment, which I'll talk a little bit about in my presentation. We were just a couple of years ago, three or so years ago, putting the marketing embedded into the sales team, which was a big move for us to actually make small independent businesses. I think it was just last year that we did the first joint sales and marketing kickoff meeting that we're in here today. So a lot of changes and evolution, thousands of small marketing initiatives that have made a huge impact on the company. So Karen, I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't have a gift for you. That doesn't really seem fair since you're the new guy, but I've got a couple other people I've got gifts. So if you just come up real quickly, Karen, I'll give it to you. Thanks for all your great work. And thanks for... Karen just told me it's usually bad to be surprised at these meetings, but that was the first pleasant surprise Karen's ever had at a marketing event. The next person I want to recognize works under the radar most of the time, I think partly because of his personality and partly because of the fact he works from his home in Boston. Where's Bruce Masterson? Oh, I knew you were here. Bruce is the best deal lawyer I've ever known in my career. I think I might have known Bruce longer than anyone else in the room. I'm not positive about that, but I think that might be the case. Bruce and I worked together early in both of our careers, Tokai Bank in Japan, and just a wonderful person, a very hard worker, but an amazing deal lawyer. And for salespeople, I know how much you guys appreciate his work to find a way to work with inside counsel, outside counsel, overcome objections, put deals together. There's nobody better. Bruce, thank you for a decade of outstanding work. And come on up, I've got something for you. Lawyers don't like surprises either, but I think Bruce will like this one.
Oh, geez.
Make sure that one has your name on it, will you?
Thanks.
Bruce, thanks for everything. Yeah. The next person I want to recognize is somewhat of a legend. Well, I shouldn't say somewhat. This is absolutely a legend. This individual started here 15 years ago. You might know who that is, Mr. Wiedemer. Nobody has had a bigger impact on the success of this organization than Mike has. Someone who started when he was, as you can tell by the picture, he started when he was 12. He actually did start pretty young, though. Started as an intern in college, but went full-time into the business and worked for many years in our operations department and accomplished great things. Really took our company into the, well, really founded what is currently our sales organization in New York. I don't know if you guys know the story, but many years ago we had all of our, well, it's actually the reason for this meeting being in Chicago, so I guess it's worth my telling this to give Alan some cover. So, we had our sales organization for many, many years in California, and we had our operations business and the headquarters in Rochester, New York, and we used to do this meeting in Chicago because we would meet in the middle. Mike was the person that really headed up our building a sales organization in Rochester, and that organization became so successful and did such great work and became such an innovator of technologies and sales tactics and building a professional sales organization that really it became the core of what we did, and we moved everything into that organization, 6 years ago or so. But Mike has had a huge impact on the success of the company. 15 years, it seems like it was just yesterday that you were starting. It goes by quick. I know when you're younger, it doesn't seem like those stories make any sense. You don't know what people are talking about, but you'll see someday. Mike, congratulations and thank you. So I'm going to preempt my own presentation here and just cut right to the bottom line. I've been doing this for about, well over a decade. We've been doing this meeting, and I provide an update on how we did last year, and we talk about what we need to do better. I can tell you I've never had results like this to present ever before. We exceeded all of our goals in 2014. It was truly a fantastic year, and more than anything else out of this presentation, I hope you take my sincere gratitude and appreciation. Thank you for your outstanding work. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, but just to give you a flavor for what a remarkable year this was. As you saw in the video, we have 3 businesses now with the vendor finance business, but producing income, we really have 2 different businesses that produce income for us. We have the direct sales business, which is represented here today, and then we have the vendor finance, we have the bank support division that John runs out of New York City. And those 2 businesses produce our revenue. So, you have diversity like that in case one business has a hiccup and then the other business can cover the slack and so forth. But what a remarkable thing that both businesses hit every single financial metric that we set for that business. Just a truly remarkable year. From income to volume to yields on the business. In addition to that, we hit our end-of-term goals. Our portfolio performance on the credit side with Mike Siegelman and his staff was outstanding. Return on assets, even HR goals, being one of the top 25 employers again for the 4th consecutive year in New York State. Truly great year, and thank you guys very much for that. So what I was thinking we would talk about today, and I want to make this as interactive as possible, so if you guys have questions, I know this looks like a congressional hearing here with all these microphones on all the tables, but we really have these set up, so if people want to jump in, we can make it as interactive as possible. What I was planning to walk through today was a little bit of detail on First American's performance. The information I'm going to present will be all published on Chatter later today, so you'll have time to mull it over in more detail, and I'm going to go fairly quickly. A little bit of an update on the U.S. economy, update on the equipment finance marketplace, and a little bit of history on what my perception is of the equipment finance industry and how it's evolved to the point we're at, as well as where it might be going in the future. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of First American's success factors that I think have contributed to our really remarkable success over the years, and maybe talk with you guys and hear your thoughts about where you think the industry is going over the next 5 or 6 years. Does that seem like that makes sense? All right. Does anyone know what an income graph that's shaped like this is called? It's kind of a nickname for it. A hockey stick, John said. That's right. So if you're working off of 2011 year-end earnings and you're selling your business in early 2012 and you tell the purchaser, this is what's going to happen. They call that a hockey stick projection, right? Everybody who sells a business says that. In fact, our projections didn't look like this because we've exceeded our projections. They were a little bit less than this. But the reality is, what a remarkable performance, right? To take a business that in 2011 made just over $10 million, put it together with a bank that has a lot of great qualities and a great cost of funds and really believes in our business. We knew the math would take us into the teens, which it did the next year at 15 million from 10 million. But then look at the synergies and the effect of people really working hard and innovating and driving the business forward. $26.4 million of pre-tax earnings last year, really a great job. Selling the business might not have been such a great decision, but we won't cover that today. Client geography, we have customers in all 50 states, and this is a summary of our business. A couple of things I'll just note here: $330 million of originations last year, over $14 million of commissionable gross margin. And one of the things that jumps out the most at me here, and might not be the number that you're looking at, is 41 sales professionals. As you can see from the third to the bottom line on the chart, we really struggled growing the sales organization. And our vision has never been to have 100 salespeople. We're not trying to just put a lot of people into the organization. Almost all of our effort is focused on making the people that are here in the room, making the players that are already on the team better and more successful in the future. But we need to get the organization a little bit bigger, and we needed to get the empty seats filled. And really, over a number of years, that was quite a challenge for us. You can see in 2008, we had 38 sales professionals, and we finally broken through over 40. I think due to some new strategies in hiring, the sales analyst program, a lot of other changes we've really made great progress in resolving that bottleneck, and I think that's going to be very helpful for years to come. Other key performance metrics: a 2.82 ROA, a great number for those of you who track that. ROA is kind of the key performance measure I think I like to look at, because it doesn't really look at the way you're financing your business or how you've leveraged the company, but it really talks about what kind of earnings are you getting on the assets. And I think in our business that's a great measure, and I think people who know would say that kind of an ROA is really a great performance. So again, congratulations. I should probably add that for those of you who are new, I do this presentation every year, and I'm pretty candid when we have problems. So this is a rare occurrence that we've had such a truly outstanding performance, and I just want to make sure that you guys get your due. This is an impressive thing you guys have done, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. 259 new customers, another new record high. Of course, that's what we all focus on in this room. We understand that unless we talk to a lot of people and tell our story and convince new people that what we offer is better than what our competitors offer, that's the ultimate acid test, we sometimes say, of everything we all do, is what we're selling accepted in the marketplace. And 259 new customers moves us in the right direction to continue expanding the business and telling our story. This chart's a little complicated, but basically 35 basis points of net losses over 10 years is a remarkable credit performance, and I just want to recognize and give a quick round of applause to Mike and his credit team for a fabulous job this last year. The reality is, though, it's not all Mike. Well, shouldn't say that in front of him. It's not all the credit department, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the reality is we have a team in this room that really thoroughly understands credit, carefully pre-qualifies, works with the right type of obligors, and that helps us run a very efficient business, and we have some statistics on that I'll show later. So it's a team effort, but truly an outstanding performance, right? You can't be in our business and lend money and not get paid back and have it all work out very well. And the portfolio performance we have is outstanding, and it's a tribute to great teamwork and a great credit department. Our approval rates, about 80%, over 80% for number of transactions. That's the efficiency metric I was just referring to, so sometimes called our look-to-book ratio. How many transactions do we have to work on that we can't fund or we don't fund because of credit reasons? Not very many. We're probably right where we should be on that. And then what type of deals are we working on? Well, we're funding about 84% of our business through the bank. So when we sold the company, we hoped to maybe get 70 or 75% of our business funded by the bank. It turns out that we're a much better fit for our parent company than even we anticipated, and this has really helped the company succeed. So we're working on the right type of deals with the right type of credits that our parent company really wants to do business with, and this has been another synergy. So what do we do, just as a quick summary, to get these kind of results? First of all, we have a different business model, right? We hire people from outside the industry. We're organized much more like Google than a bank. We have people work in small teams. We're trying to move toward integrating those teams into businesses. So we've moved marketing into the team, and we're thinking about how can we move IT and other resources right into the team to empower the people in the room to be creative and build their business in the smartest possible way. Training, right? We hire people from outside the industry, so training is an important part of our initiatives. We have formal training, but I think one of the things I'm most excited about is our peer-to-peer learning. Our systems like Chatter and CubeTube, our ability to record virtual meetings and to make those available for everybody in the room to watch. We have to continue to work on ways to foster and really pioneer this peer learning concept that we've been using, so that we don't have to go through that old-fashioned formal way of learning going, or information going to a manager and a manager calling people into a room like this and presenting information back in real time on a set schedule. We need to find ways to get the people who have the answers, who are closest to the competition and closest to our customers right here in the room, to share that information with other people so it doesn't have to go through this awkward and inefficient channel. And I think we're making progress on that. It's a new concept, but I think we're a business that's really on the leading edge of it, and we're going to keep pushing that. Our clients, we sell to our clients the way they want to buy, because we're obsessed with our clients. We think about our clients all the time. We think about their needs. We always try to find ways to serve them better. We aren't constrained by what we've done in the past that works. We recognize that we continually have to change, and we live in a changing world that's moving very rapidly, and we have to look at the way our customer buying preferences are changing. That's been a huge factor of success. Our repeat business ratio is extremely high. It's higher than any other company in the equipment finance industry that I'm familiar with. Once we do business with a customer, the hard part is bringing them in, getting 259 new people to say yes to us. Once we do business with a client, they recognize that we serve them in a way that's fundamentally different than our competition. And this client focus has been a big difference maker for us. We've always had, like our parent company, a business strategy that's really based on customer intimacy. Right? We try to figure out how we can, if you think about business and you say, well, there's a couple different ways you can succeed. You could be a cost leader. You could be the Walmart. You could be the biggest and have economies of scale and offer the lowest prices. You could perhaps be a company that's an innovator, right? And you develop new technologies and you figure out, you get patents or different types of intellectual property protection on developments that you're researching and developing. Or you could be a customer, and by the way, we try to be innovative, and you have to do all these things well, but we try to be what I would call a customer intimacy company, a company that understands its customers' needs in a deep way and really thinks about how we can add real meaningful value to the client. And you have to do all these things reasonably well, but there's a theory that says that you have to really pick one and do it in an excellent way. And I would suggest to you that our parent company and our company are most focused on customer intimacy. We think about innovation, we think about new products, but the reality is our products, fundamental products, look pretty much like our competition's products. And we recognize we're never going to be the biggest and we're never going to be the lowest cost. That's not our advantage. But we're organized into verticals, and we really understand our customers, and we think about their needs, and we serve them in a way that fundamentally adds value that's meaningful to the CFOs we serve. And that's leveraged by our use of the CRM, right? Our Salesforce that we use in the company, our Salesforce model, and the technology that we use to serve our clients really leverages that customer intimacy strategy that we've had for more than a decade. Our segmentation strategy I just mentioned, that allows us to organize ourselves into groups, so we just serve acute care hospitals, or we just serve professional services companies, or we just serve education clients. And that allows us to become experts in those areas and add more value to the clients we serve. And then you combine that industry experience with the knowledge of the assets, unique in each of the different areas, and that provides meaningful value for the CFOs that we serve. And then we take that strategy and we build it into teams, so we don't become so big that we become bureaucratic and we're impeded by our own success because things become so complicated. And we keep breaking it down into small teams, and we keep delegating the authority back to the fully integrated teams to make business decisions and grow their businesses. And we use a push sales model, which is really different than what most of our competitors use in the business, right? All of you are aggressively calling clients within the verticals that you serve, and you're telling them why they should consider us and why they should do business with us. And that's fundamentally different than some of our competition that runs advertisements during the Super Bowl and builds football stadiums that they name after themselves, and they wait for the phone to ring. That's a pull marketing strategy. We use an aggressive push marketing strategy because we've got something to offer and we're pushing it to the market. In fact, that's what you guys in this room do. And then we do it all within a set of values that we feel good about what we do. We set big goals. We want to revolutionize this industry. We're not just trying to make a living. We're trying to make a difference. We all commit that we talked about it this morning, that we're going to do whatever it takes. We're going to set big goals, and then we're going to find a way to make sure we don't let each other down and let the company down by missing our goals. We do everything with integrity and honesty and transparency. I think one of the things you find when you join this company, Mark, is that everything's pretty transparent. If you want to know anything, there's nothing off limits. How we're doing financially, how different people in the organization are doing. It just makes it's a better way to run a business, right? No secrets. Let's just be honest, work hard, and do our best. We have a commitment to self-improvement, and we understand that we as a company can't succeed unless all the people in the room succeed. And everybody should feel every day when they drive home from the office that they're getting better. And that's a commitment we make to all of our people. And we just have a philosophy that we don't accept mediocrity because we want to do something big and significant. So those are the reasons that I see why we've had the results we've had. Except none of that would make any difference if we didn't have people like you that are committed to making it happen, which is ultimately what makes a difference. So again, thank you. I want to shift gears now and talk a little bit about the economy, and then I want to talk a little bit about strategy. Again, if we have any questions as I'm going along here, I know I'm going fast, but I've got a lot to get through. Please feel free to just speak up. So what's going on in the economy? We look at these charts every year, and the reality is I'm going to go pretty quickly here because there's nothing holding us back. The economy is pretty strong. As you guys know, GDP is comprised of really three components: consumer spending, government spending, and investment, business investment. Business investment is really what affects us, right? That's the stuff that we finance, is the business investment part of GDP. And the reality is GDP has returned to a historical normal level. And when you hear on the news a lot of discussion about problems with GDP, it's usually in the C or the G part, the consumer or the government part, not so much in the business investment part, which continues to pick up even now. This is a little bit longer time perspective. This looks back 30 years. And you can see that the normalized level of GDP since the financial crisis is a little bit lower than it was in prior periods. But as I said, the part that affects our business is actually very close to a normal level right now. The economy is performing well, and there's no real headwinds here holding us back. The economy is very positive. So these next two slides are consumer and industrial lending in banks. So let's look at how banks are doing with their loan portfolios, just for the loans that they make to businesses. So this is not just equipment finance loans, but these are all different types of C&I loans. As you can see, there was a huge spike in delinquencies. And by the way, for newer folks, delinquencies are loans that generally are loans that are over 30 days past due. So this doesn't mean the banks lost any money, but this just shows of the loans they have on their books, how many of them aren't paying on time. And as you can see, there was a huge spike in delinquencies after the financial crisis, and that's coming down at a pretty rapid rate and approaching the levels before the financial crisis. And I can just tell you for context, the levels before the financial crisis were pretty much all-time low levels. So 1.5% delinquencies is pretty darn low, which is where we were before the financial crisis, and we're approaching that again. This next slide looks at that same segment of data of banks across the US, only business loans, commercial and industrial lending, and it looks at charge-offs. So these are loans that went through the delinquencies chart that we just looked at a moment ago, and they actually were foreclosed on, if you will. The bank said, we're just not going to get paid back. Let's take whatever collateral we can get. Let's take whatever payments we can get. We're not going to get any more. Here's how much we have to write off. We have to write off the rest of the loan because we're not going to get paid back. You can see after the financial crisis, a lot of bad loans on the books, a lot of write-offs. Charge-offs went up to 3%. But they've returned right down to the exact same level they were at before the financial crisis, which again, 50 basis points was a historical low, and we're right back there now. So just for context, let's compare that to the equipment finance industry. The equipment finance business is a segment, a subset of the C&I slides we just looked at. So we just looked at slides for all types of lending. It could be factoring, it could be receivables and inventory financing, it could be all sorts of other business lending. Now let's look at just equipment finance type statistics. These statistics come from our Industry Trade Association and the MILFI 25 Index. This index is comprised of 25 different companies that submit monthly data, and it's indexed, and it really gives us a benchmark. You can see on the left-hand column, 3/4 of the way down, First American has been a participant in this index for the last 10 years or so. So a couple statistics from the MILFI 25. First of all, originations volume, all-time high. And I can tell you this coincides with an annual survey that's also done by the Equipment Leasing Foundation, which shows that the industry that we serve, the equipment finance industry, has for the first time exceeded $900 billion of outstanding loans. So we're a very small part of a very big industry. And as evidenced by the index of 25 companies that we participate in, 2014 was an all-time record high in terms of the amount of equipment finance business that was done. This next slide highlights credit approval ratios, and it shows before the financial crisis about 80% of applications were getting credit approved. That went way down during the financial crisis and now has returned back to about where it was before. This slide is something you can contrast with the prior slides we just looked at. This shows the delinquencies within our industry. So this shows for the MILFI 25, what's the delinquency trend? How many customers are past due? You can see again, it started at, I actually can't see the legend on the left-hand side there, but 2%, and has returned back down to 1%. I think that's probably the most interesting part about this whole slide, is that 2% was a pretty low delinquency rate for equipment finance business before the financial crisis. I can remember sitting in board meetings at the ELFA and having the head of some of the largest banks' equipment finance businesses kind of sounding warning bells in 2006 and 27, saying, boy, this is almost too good to be true. Our delinquencies and our charge-offs are so low. I wonder what's going to happen. And I don't think anyone could have imagined the financial crisis, but nor could they have imagined that after the financial crisis, it would drop to less than half of that at only 1%. Kind of a remarkable thing. I'm not foreshadowing anything, but I just think it's surprising that it's gone that low. And this is a different trend than we see among all C&I lending. The charge-off has the same characteristic. So 50 basis points of charge-off before the financial crisis for equipment finance companies, spiking during the financial crisis, and now going all the way down to 25 basis points of charge-offs. Really a remarkably low level right now. So it might not only be First American that's having a great year, a lot of good things going on here. So I thought that would be a helpful backdrop. We've talked a little bit about our performance and our statistics. We've talked a little bit about the economy. I don't think there's too much to talk about in the economy. It's very supportive. We've looked at our competitors and industry benchmarks, and we see that portfolios are performing well and equipment finance companies are really thriving right now. But let's talk about a longer time frame. Let's talk about maybe strategy and philosophy and what businesses are doing, and I'd be curious for you guys to jump in if you have thoughts on any of this. I think it might be my presupposition that we're entering a period of changing times, and you might not think that's the greatest insight because we see that in the newspapers every day, right? Every business is changing. It's getting, I mean, if you're in the publishing business, the world has changed. If you owned a record store 10 years ago, the world has changed. Everything is changing very fast, and it's not just technology. So let's think about some of the things that are going on. In our business, it was always very clear to me, and it might be because I owned and ran a very small company, that there was a huge advantage to being big, perhaps a disadvantage to being small. There was a theory that was talked about in the equipment finance industry that was called whales and minnows, where the whales were eating all the minnows, and I was always a minnow, so I never really liked that framework. But and it really was based on what was clearly going on and what has been the dominant driver, the dominant strategy in our industry for at least 20 years, which is this strategy of cost leadership, right? You want to be the biggest. And that makes a lot of sense. If you're in a mature business, and if you're in a business that's becoming commoditized, right? It's all about the rate, if that's what you believe. then it makes sense that, boy, if I could figure out a way to get my business so big and so efficient through economies of scale that I could actually offer the exact same thing everybody else offers, which has no differentiation, but I could offer it for less, everybody's going to come to me and buy it, and I'm going to make the most money. So it clearly makes sense, but it can only make sense for the top 1 or 2 or 3 players in a market, right? Because everybody can't be the biggest. And this is still a very fractured market, and there are a lot of players. But clearly, the strategy that almost all the players were working toward was this cost leadership strategy. Again, these are just my opinions. This slide, you can't read it. Well, maybe if you have really remarkable eyes, you could. It wasn't intended so much so that you could read it, but this is a list just over the last 3 years of acquisitions that have taken place just within our little part of the business. So this is just sort of a sample to sort of support the notion that we have this trend going on in the equipment finance industry where the larger companies are buying the smaller companies, not necessarily smaller, sometimes equal-sized companies buying each other to grow and gain economies of scale. And again, much longer than a 3-year trend. I just couldn't possibly imagine a small enough font to put 20 years on there, but it's been the same trend for a long time. And this trend is not different among banks. It's not different among commercial finance companies. It's not other segments of the market. You would see the same thing. And my presupposition is that, one of the things that's happened is banks have spent a lot of focus on this cost leadership and economies of scale objective. Alex is seeing some of her slides that were repurposed here, probably not very well, but I saw your expression there. Cost savings, right, is a big driver, and that kind of focuses into the cost leadership strategy. Sometimes a broader suite of products. Right? You want to have an organization that has a more diverse offering because certain more sophisticated clients want to buy more things, but really much less focus on customer service, customer experience, delivery model, a lot of those other factors. So I would propose to you, though, that things are changing, and there are new challenges for some of these banks that previously were in such a dominant position to firms like us, right, that are part of a medium-sized bank, and we're not going to be the largest at City National. We're not going to be the lowest cost and be able to compete purely on price. I would suggest to you that some of the things for these banks are changing. And just to run through some of them here, attracting and retaining talent. I think banks are having a very hard time attracting the best and the brightest young people because statistics show that very few graduates of top business schools are going to work in financial services today like they were many years ago. Changing customer buying preferences. I think it's very hard for banks to adapt and evolve and change their model because they've been doing it the same way for a long time. Legacy IT systems. What was a huge advantage, right, to have the biggest IT system, which could have the lowest processing cost for pushing a deal through, now becomes a bit of a boat anchor because you have to figure out with these new technologies that are coming out and these new customer preferences and new ways customers want to buy, you've not only got to invent the new thing, but you've got to convert all the legacy stuff over to the new thing. Big problem. Organizational design problems. Right? A lot of these organizations, as they continue to merge and because of the regulatory environment, they've created very hierarchical organizational structures. A lot of levels, a lot of bureaucracy, and that makes it very hard to be agile and fast-moving and change and responsive to all these changes that are affecting all businesses today. Innovation and iteration. That becomes difficult when you have a large bureaucracy that's done it the same way and it's very departmentalized. And increasing regulation is another factor that puts pressure on some of these companies that up until now probably were a huge challenge for us. And we probably thought, we have to eke out our own little space and that's the best we can do. And we've been doing a great job at that. But maybe everything's changing now and maybe a lot of these money center banks that had such a competitive advantage now have a set of problems that maybe might partially or fully offset some of the competitive advantage they've had for much of the last 20 years. I was fortunate to be invited to a meeting a few months ago with Bram and Russell and John Beal and some others at the bank with the S&P committee, which is a few of the top people at the bank. And there was a handout from KPMG, which I can post on Chatter as well. This is the author of the handout. And this is right out of the index of the KPMG handout about the top issues facing banks. And we talked about, this is one of about 30 articles that was part of the pre-reading for that meeting. KPMG is talking about the fact that banks, because of a lot of the factors I just mentioned, they have a challenge focusing on customers instead of products. Maybe another way to say that is they tend to be internally focused as opposed to externally focused. They don't have a culture of embracing change. They have challenges deriving value from data. I personally don't think that's going to be a big challenge for banks. I think they'll figure that out very quickly. I think the big data thing is a perfect fit for banks, and I think that's the kind of thing that they can work through, but it's something they're working through now. Mergers and acquisitions and alliances don't always go smoothly. I don't think maybe we realize how fortunate we are to be a part of the organization that we're a part of, and the way they run this business and the freedom they give us and the autonomy and the respect you've earned with them and the kindness they've shown us in reciprocation of that. We're very, very fortunate. It doesn't always work that way, and I think a lot of banks who aren't as experienced as City National at doing acquisitions and aren't as self-confident and aren't as thoughtful, they have a very hard time creating the kind of experience we've had over the last 3 years. Technology, for the reasons we just talked about, changing technology, legacy infrastructures becomes very challenging, right, for banks to figure out how they're going to get all that old stuff on the old systems into this new model. Much harder than a startup company, right, that's starting with a clean slate. Cybersecurity, that's a huge additional tax on the technology budgets and the times of these the largest institutions. They had this cost advantage, but now the cybersecurity threats that these banks face and the reputational harm they suffer when they have an incident taxes their IT budgets because much of the resources has to go away from innovation, away from customer focus, and it has to be building a wall and a fence around the data so that they don't have one of these PR disasters that Target had. Regulatory compliance is really a driver of, I think, a lot of these issues. It forces banks to organize themselves in the way they do, and it makes it very difficult for some of these largest banks to move forward. So this is from KPMG, I think, pretty similar list of some of the challenges. This doesn't really add much, so I'll skip past here, but the large size of some of these organizations is a bit of a challenge. I think we recognize that some of the banks during the financial crisis became so complex that it was just a very difficult organization to run. And I think one of the other issues that some of these very large organizations have is that much innovation happens with small businesses, right? In other words, it happens on a small scale first until it gets really big. And that experimentation is very difficult to do if you're running a money center bank where you have to deliver quarterly earnings. And everything you do has to be making a difference right now. So how can you run experiments with small operations that might be pioneering and innovative and really pay attention to them and figure out how to foster them when you've got such big numbers that you have to worry about? Because I think by definition most of those worthwhile initiatives tend to be long-term and they tend to produce small results at first. I think most of these other factors we covered already. So what does this mean? How are banks going to evolve? Because banks have a lot of smart people working for them, these large banks. They're going to figure out how to come back and put pressure on us. One of the models that you read about and you hear about is that banks might start lending to other intermediate companies that then lend to the customer. That's this idea of banks somehow getting disintermediated from the end user customer and actually lending to another company that lends to the customer. A little bit like First American operated before we were part of City National. That could happen. Lenders, they might wait to see the winners and the losers. I think Mark and I saw this recently at a commercial payments conference we were at in Las Vegas, where it was just openly discussed that the payments system is going to change dramatically. And everyone who's invested in it and is making money from it now recognizes that 5 years from now, the payment system is going to work quite different. You're not going to have your Visa card, which is a piece of plastic with numbers on it, with all the fraud problems that we have. And banks aren't going to be able to get a 1% profit for every dollar you're spending on those things. There's going to be some new system. And there's a lot of things going on with Apple Pay, which is actually fairly conventional, all the way to much more innovative type schemes, but there are so many of them, nobody can pick winners or losers right now. But it's often discussed that banks are waiting on the sidelines to see which technologies emerge so that they can buy those technologies and control them, and that would be a reasonable strategy. And then you can also imagine legislative actions. Being in the banking business and certainly being in the coveted position of a very competitive banking situation, we're one of the largest banks, a money center bank. That's a little bit like having a license, right? That's like maybe having a taxi cab medallion in New York City. You can't just drive up and drive people around. You have to somehow get licensed. And much the same way the taxi cab companies are going after Uber with the technology changes, and they're trying to get regulation and safety regulations and other regulatory things to slow Uber down to protect their turf. It wouldn't be unexpected that banks would use the same type of strategies. So I guess the question I have for you guys is, what in this changing world, which I find very exciting, by the way. I mean, I think many of us who've been in this business for a long time, we were resigned to a lot of things that seemed like it was going to be a very hard battle. It was going to be a very uphill battle. It was going to take a really long time, and it was going to be pretty tough. And everybody knew the lay of the land, and wins were going to be really incremental and small. And that's the great success we've had, has kind of happened that way. But now even more exciting, I think, everything's changing so fast, and there are so many paradigms that are being turned upside down that for a business like ours, the opportunity may be very substantial, much bigger. And I think we talk about thinking big and the need to think big. It's a very exciting time for all of us here because the breakthroughs could be tremendous. Here's an example. You guys are familiar with this. Alan talks about it a lot. Lending Club has a $9 billion valuation just within the last month. This is a business that lost $24 million last year, was founded in 2007, and has a valuation twice City National's valuation, more than twice. City National, by contrast, was founded in 1953, earned $230 million last year, and has a $4 billion valuation. So you can just see that the world is in flux, right? So on the fundamentals, it wouldn't make sense to buy this company, but a lot of sophisticated investors think a lot of things are about to change. So what should we do? Where should we go in this time of turmoil? What's the solution for us? Everything's changing rapidly. It's not just our industry. We hear stories about how 30 years ago, the most successful businesses in any industry had a very long life cycle. And now the life cycle of successful businesses is getting shorter and shorter across all industries. It's just in our world. It seems to me, and this is just my suggestion, that innovation and iteration and adaptability, these are the kind of things we have to keep focusing on here at First American, because this agility is what creates the opportunity to take advantage of the huge opportunities we're going to have as all these changes play out. And it seems to me like it could be a pretty exciting time, because I think for all the reasons we talked about earlier, some of these very, very large organizations are going to have a hard time making those kind of changes. So I wanted to come back to some of the strategies that we've employed that I think really work and I think help, and I think we should be focused on as we think big picture about where we go with the company. Right? It comes down to the people. That's my top thing. We have to have ambitious and talented people, and we have to find a way to empower them and allow them to work in teams and help solve problems. We think a lot here about getting people in the right positions. It really helps if you have a job that you enjoy. You like getting up in the morning, you like going to work, you like doing your job because you found a fit for your personality, and you found something that has meaning for you in your life, and you feel like you're doing something that's of value. And that's really important. We have to create that for every person. We have to keep the organization flat and keep the bureaucracy out so we can keep the agility. And I think that comes from cross-functional teams, and I think we can do a lot more than we've done before, right? I mean, we have teams now, but in a lot of ways they aren't fully teams. And I see that in other organizations that I'm more familiar with now, where they're really just sales organizations and we call them businesses. We have to make our verticals businesses. And I think we do that by moving IT, moving accounting and corporate finance, moving collections, moving all the different credit, moving those right inside the teams and allowing those businesses more autonomy to control their destiny and to innovate. We have to tolerate mistakes. That's a big part of innovation. We have to be patient. We have to be willing to tolerate mistakes. And that's the price of success. We have to encourage long-term thinking. Over the last year, we brought in some futurists. I don't think a lot of companies are doing that. We talked about what the equipment finance industry might look like 10 years from now. That's the kind of muscle we need to keep working on, right? We need to keep developing, because that doesn't come easy, but those kind of programs are the kind of things that keep us looking forward, they keep our eyes open, and they allow us to see these trends that are changing and what we can do. We have to drive these important initiatives with teams. And I guess I would just ask you to think about Jen's, where's Jen here? Oh, there she is. Jen's effort on the Salesforce Improvement Committee, and that's what we need all over our company. I mean, what a great initiative where we buy a wonderful product that has tremendous potential, not so much because it's cloud-based, but because it's configurable. And when it's configurable, that means we can turn over the keys and let the people who know the most about our business, the people who talk to our customers and deal with our competitors every single day, we can let them fix it for us. And in doing that, the kind of iteration and success and evolution you have over such a short period of time, moving the company so far forward, is really emblematic and representative of what we're trying to build. We need to continue to invest in professional development and help all the people who are here get better and improve themselves. And we need to keep moving people around, right, and allow people to have the experience Mike's had and many others over the last 15 years to work in different departments and learn different parts of the business and fully understand what we're accomplishing, so we can become not only personally and professionally satisfied, but we can become better and more knowledgeable. We need to align incentives. I think we do a reasonably good job, and I think it's something we need to keep focusing on to make sure we have the right incentives in place. In sales, for me, that means an unlimited, uncapped, pay-for-performance, income-based, profit-based incentive plan, which we have, and I think we're going to talk about a little bit more today to make sure everyone understands it. And you know, we've had a philosophy here in this company where we often say, and Mark's probably heard this already, but you know, we will stand behind you until you become successful. We need that philosophy. We need our sales professionals not to be worried about what their most recent result was or what have you. But the reality is, if you work hard and you do the right things, you never have to worry about it. We invested in you and we picked you, and we're going to stand behind you until you're successful. And I think that's the kind of philosophy that has helped us build a great organization. We have to be transparent and open about everything we share. We have to intensely measure things, and we have to talk about all the things that we measure. And we have to measure the things that are important, right? We measure employee satisfaction. Later today, Al's going to pass out a link to a survey for this meeting and how we did and how we can make the meeting better. We need to really think about that. Next year, we need to deliver a better meeting than we delivered today. And we do employee loyalty surveys, and we do customer loyalty surveys, and we do all sorts of things because they're important to us. And then we talk about them, and that becomes part of our culture. And that creates that external focus. So we aren't self-focused, but we're focused on customers and how we can do better. And we need to have all of those results be transparent, right? Everybody needs to have full confidence that they know everything that's going on. Don't worry, I don't have 10 of these. I think this might be the last one. Never disrespect the client. I can tell you that I'm so proud of this organization and the way we look at the business, and I can tell you other organizations don't all work this way. There's never any water cooler talk at First American about somebody really taking advantage of a client. That just doesn't ever happen here. It couldn't happen. It's not part of our culture. It's not consistent with what we do, and I think that's a great thing. And then I think that as leaders, we need to get out of the way. I think we need to be humble and recognize that the firm's success is entirely due to the people on the front lines that are serving and communicating with our customers. And we need to just be focused on creating the kind of environment where those people can succeed. So, what's a possible success strategy? This has been very interactive, by the way, so keep the questions coming. It's probably good because I'm out of time. Just to start to wrap up here, as you think about then, where do we want to be 5 or 6 years from now? What kind of an organization do we want to have? What do we do to protect ourselves against this chaos that's going on outside here in downtown Chicago in the business world? Maintain these philosophies that allow for agility and innovation and empowerment. We can carefully watch what's going on, right? A lot of this is going to play out right in front of us in the front page of the Wall Street Journal. We should all be paying attention to it and thinking about it. We should probably talk about it more in the organization than we do. How are all these changes going to play out in our industry? Because we know if we can see it coming, we can move faster than anyone else. We can get there quicker. And a lot of the answers aren't there yet. Nobody knows how it's going to play out, but we'll figure it out. And when we see the role that these new organizations are moving into, and we see the role that these large organizations that have dominated our business are moving into, then we'll know what our space is. It'll become clear to us. Any thoughts or observations? Hopefully that wasn't negative. It wasn't intended that way. I think this is a tremendously positive and optimistic time, and it's a great time to be in the business. And coming off a year like we've just had, there couldn't be anything more exciting from my perspective. All right. Great. Well, at this point, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll be back to talk about the sales organization. Thank you.
When I think about taking ownership as a concept, over my business personally, I think that's a pretty easy one. I think you come into work every day and attack your day like you were running the company. This is your territory that you have, and it's your job to manage it. It's your job to grow it. That responsibility doesn't fall on anyone else. We have the tools, we have the resources. If there are additional tools or resources that we need, it's a matter of asking. If I've learned one thing here at First American, it's always a matter of just asking the question. And if you need more tools or resources, they're going to get them to you. So I think for me, that's the big piece of it, is just, again, coming in and running your day like you were the CEO of the company. I think the biggest differentiator for First American is the people. When I think about my mentor at First American, that's a really easy one for me. It's Todd Benson, hands down. I had a unique opportunity to work very closely with Todd my first year here. And the thing that impresses me the most about Todd that did when I started here and still continues to is his ability to balance. Anybody that you talk to will tell you what a great person Todd is. Anybody in the organization will tell you what a consummate professional he is, but what I was taken back by, and again still continue to be, is just his ability to balance those things. Year in and year out, he's one of the top producers in the company. He's always looking to take on more challenges. But he also doesn't let that hinder his ability to be a great father, a great husband, and doesn't let that hinder him practicing his faith. And I think when you look at all those things tied together, that's the type of person and sales professional that I want to be.